Welcome students. This session is for BA second year English Literature paper first, that is Poetry and Drama. You have poem by William Butler Yeats, Second Coming in your course. In this session, I'll be introducing you to this poet W.B. Yeats as well as this poem, The Second Coming. Yeats was born on 13th June 1865 and he died 28th January 1969, the famous poet of 20th century. Let's have a look at life and works of W.B. Yeats. Yeats is an Irish poet, dramatist, and prose writer, one of the greatest English language poets of 20th century. He received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1923. He spent his childhood in County Sligo, where his parents were raised, and in London. He returned to Dublin at the age of 15 to continue his education and study painting, but quickly discovered he preferred poetry. So he's a famous poet. Born into Anglo-Irish land-owning class, Yeats became involved with the Celtic Revival, a movement against the cultural influences of English rule in Ireland during Victorian period, which sought to promote the spirit of Ireland's native heritage. So Yeats was involved in this Celtic movement where he promoted Ireland's native heritage and was against the cultural influences of English rule in this place. Yeats never abandoned his strict adherence to traditional verse forms. So you can see in his poems that how he follows the traditional poetic forms. He had a lifelong interest in mysticism and occult. So in his poems, we also come to know that he had that liking for obscure thoughts, and you can see his obscure speculations and his love for occult, that is somewhere related to magic, which was off-putting to some readers, but he remained uninhibited in advancing his idiosyncratic philosophy. So he had his own specifically individual philosophy, which he continued in his writings, and his poetry continued to grow stronger as he grew older. So we see that Yeats' poetry are quite mature in their essence as well as in his expressions. Appointed a senator of Irish Free State in 1922, he is remembered as an important cultural leader, as a major playwright. Yeats is also remembered as a cultural leader and a playwright, except as a poet. He was one of the founders of the famous Abbey Theatre in Dublin. His work was reflected a pessimism about the political situation in his country and the rest of Europe, paralleling the increasing conservatism of his American counterparts in London, T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound. So in this poem also, that is Second Coming, there is a pessimism, a note of pessimism about the situation that he talks about in his own country and the rest of Europe, and somewhere his writings can be matched with his American counterparts who were in London at that time, T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound. His work after 1910 was strongly influenced by Pound. So his works have a major influence of Ezra Pound, becoming more modern in its position and imagery. So his works are quite brief and full of imagery, just like Ezra Pound. William Butler Yeats published his first works in the mid-1880s while a student at Dublin Metropolitan School of Art. So his first breakthrough came in 1880s. His early accomplishments include The Wanderings of Oisin and Other Poems, that is 1889, and such plays as The Countess Kathleen, that is 1892, and Deirdre, 1907, 1923, he went on to pen more influential works, including The Tar, 1928, and Words for Music, perhaps, and other poems, 1932. So these are the major works that he got published and his early accomplishments. Let's have a look at what this poem, The Second Coming, is about. We'll also see the structure of this poem, The Second Coming. This poem is written in a very rough iambic pentameter. So first let's understand what iambic pentameter is. In my previous session, I've talked about heroic couplet, and heroic couplet means that it has line of iambic pentameter, which means that every line will be of 10 syllables arranged in iambic form. That means the first syllable will be unstressed one, and the second will be stressed one, and this way there will be 5 pairs, which means pentameter. Penta means 5. That means every line is going to be of 5 pairs. That means 10 syllables per line. But second coming is a rough iambic pentameter. That means not every line is going to be in iambic form, or there might be an addition of a meter, or maybe 1 meter less. So it's roughly written in iambic pentameter. But the meter is so loose and the exceptions so frequent that it actually seems closer to free verse. Because free verse does not follow any strict metrical use. That's why this poem lines are written in so many variations, and there are so many exceptions that it looks more of a free verse with frequent heavy stresses. The stress syllables are quite prominent, so this poem looks more like a free verse. The rhymes are likewise haphazard, so it does not follow any patterned rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme is quite haphazard, apart from the 2 couplets with which the poem opens. The poem begins with a couplet. There are only coincidental rhymes in the poem, so there is no fixed pattern of rhyme scheme in the poem. This rhyme scheme appears in the poem quite coincidentally, such as man and sun. It describes a deeply mysterious and powerful alternative to the Christian idea of the second coming. Basically, the second coming is a Christian idea where Jesus prophesied that he's going to return to the earth as a savior, announcing the kingdom of heaven. So second coming is basically second coming of Jesus on earth, announcing kingdom of heaven. But here, second coming in this poem is not the coming of Jesus on earth, rather quite presents a powerful alternative of this Christian idea. The poem's first stanza describes the world of chaos, confusion and pain. So you can see that this poem can be divided clearly into 2 parts. The first part, the first stanza of the poem, it describes the world as chaotic, full of confusion and a lot of pain. The second longer stanza imagines the speaker receiving a vision of the future. It says that the world in such a chaotic condition that in the second stanza, poet or the speaker in the poem, he has a vision for the future, but this vision replaces Jesus' heroic return with what seems to be arrival of a grotesque beast. So it's not Jesus who is coming to save this world, rather the image is of complete annihilation, where he's imagining the arrival of some deadly beast with its distant imagery and vivid description of society's collapse. And somewhere this violence and chaos has reached to that extent where poet is imagining the collapse of society and is imagining the coming of some deadly beast. The second coming is also one of Yeats' most quoted poems. It's quite famous poem, and we'll have a look at the text in my next session, and it's one of Yeats' most quoted poems. So we'll continue with this poem in my next session. Thank you.